Before we go into today's deep dive, please remember to subscribe, share and like this video as it really does help us reach a wider audience. Now, without further ado, let's begin. Football has been called the beautiful game for generations. It is more than a sport. It is a language understood in every corner of the world. It has the power to unite nations, inspire children, and create moments that live forever in history. Every 4 years, billions of people stop what they're doing to watch one tournament. The FIFA World Cup, for many, it represents the very best of humanity, passion, pride, competition, dreams. But this year's controversial tournament, held in North and South America, brought about a reminder for many that behind the roaring crowds, the confetti and the glittering trophy lies another story, a story filled with power, politics, money, influence, secret meetings, allegations of corruption, questionable decisions, and an organisation that has repeatedly found itself accused of putting commercial interests ahead of the game itself. So tonight, we ask one simple question: has FIFA lost the beautiful game? To answer that, we have to travel back more than 120 years. In 1904, representatives from 7 European football associations gathered in Paris. Their ambition appeared simple. Football was growing rapidly, but there was no single international body capable of organising the game across borders. That meeting resulted in the creation of the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, FIFA. Its mission sounded noble: to govern international football fairly, to promote the sport globally, to bring nations together through competition rather than conflict. At that point, football was still largely regional. International matches were relatively uncommon. There was no World Cup, no global broadcasting, no billion-pound sponsorships, no commercial empire. Few could have imagined that the organisation, founded in a modest office in Paris, would eventually become one of the most powerful sporting institutions on earth. During its early years, FIFA remained relatively small. The Olympic Games became football's biggest international stage, helping the sport spread beyond Europe. Then one man changed everything: Jules Rimet. Elected FIFA president in 1921, Rimet believed football could become a force for international unity following the devastation of the First World War. He wanted an independent global tournament, one that belonged to football rather than the Olympics. Many dismissed the idea as unrealistic. Travel was expensive, international sport was still developing, and many countries simply weren't interested. But Rimet persisted. In 1930, Uruguay hosted the first FIFA World Cup. Only 13 teams participated. There were no billion-pound television rights, no celebrity performances, no multinational sponsorship deals, just football. Uruguay defeated Argentina in the final, and the World Cup was born. Today, Jules Rimet is remembered as one of football's greatest visionaries. Without him, the competition that captivates billions every 4 years might never have existed. Yet even in those early years, football was already becoming something else. Something politicians quickly realised could be extraordinarily useful. 4 years later, Italy hosted the 1934 World Cup. Benito Mussolini had seized power over a decade earlier and was determined to present fascist Italy as strong, disciplined and superior. Hosting the World Cup offered a perfect opportunity. The tournament became far more than sport. It became propaganda. Italian stadiums displayed fascist symbols. Political ceremonies accompanied football matches. Players reportedly performed fascist salutes before kickoff. Historians continue to debate the extent to which referees may have been influenced during Italy's route to victory. While definitive proof of match manipulation remains elusive, the perception alone demonstrated how easily football could become entangled with political ambition. For FIFA, this presented an uncomfortable reality. The organisation claimed to unite nations through sport, but what happened when governments used that sport to strengthen authoritarian rule? It was a question FIFA would face repeatedly throughout its history. Then came the Second World War, the World Cup was suspended, millions died across Europe and beyond. When international football finally returned in 1950, the tournament symbolised hope, recovery and reconciliation. Over the following decades, football expanded rapidly across South America, Africa and Asia. Television transformed everything. What had once been witnessed by thousands inside stadiums could now be watched by millions from their homes. As audiences grew, so did commercial interest. Sponsors wanted exposure. Broadcasters wanted rights, governments wanted prestige, and FIFA suddenly found itself controlling something incredibly valuable. The World Cup was no longer simply a sporting competition. It had become one of the world's most valuable global events. With enormous money came enormous influence, and where influence exists, power inevitably follows. During the 1970s, another pivotal figure emerged, João Havelange, a Brazilian lawyer and businessman who challenged the established European leadership of FIFA. Unlike many before him, Havelange recognized that football's future lay beyond Europe. He traveled extensively through Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, promising investment, development funding, and greater representation. Many national associations supported him. When he became FIFA president in 1974, he transformed the organization forever. Membership expanded dramatically, the World Cup grew, football reached countries that had previously received little international attention, development programs increased, millions more children gained opportunities to play organized football. In many respects, Havelange modernized FIFA, but critics argue that he also fundamentally changed its priorities. Commercial sponsorship exploded, television rights became extraordinarily lucrative, corporate partnerships multiplied, football increasingly became big business, supporters celebrated the growth. Critics questioned whether financial success was beginning to outweigh sporting integrity. Those concerns intensified with the emergence of one company, International Sport and Leisure. Better known as ISL secured enormous marketing rights connected to FIFA tournaments. For years, the company appeared to be one of football's greatest commercial success stories. Then it collapsed. Investigations later revealed that millions of dollars in secret payments had allegedly been made to senior football officials over many years. Swiss court documents would eventually expose evidence suggesting that football's governing structures had become intertwined with hidden financial arrangements. Although many details only emerged years later, the damage to FIFA's reputation was profound. Questions that had previously circulated as rumours suddenly appeared, supported by documentary evidence. Was football still being governed in the interests of supporters? Or had powerful individuals discovered that controlling the world's most popular sport could also generate extraordinary personal wealth? Those questions only became louder under the presidency of Sepp Blatter. To millions of football supporters, Blatter became the face of FIFA. He oversaw World Cups watched by unprecedented global audiences. Women's football expanded, youth competitions increased, development funding reached hundreds of national associations. Yet his presidency became increasingly overshadowed by controversy. Allegations accumulated year after year, questions surrounded executive committee votes, questions surrounded financial governance, questions surrounded transparency. And perhaps most famously, questions surrounded the awarding of future World Cups. In 2010, FIFA announced that Russia would host the 2018 World Cup, Qatar would host the 2022 tournament. Almost immediately, critics questioned how those decisions had been reached. Qatar in particular generated enormous international debate. It would become the smallest nation ever to host a competition. Summer temperatures regularly exceeded 40 degrees Celsius. Entire stadiums would need advanced cooling systems. Infrastructure required unprecedented construction. Then came allegations concerning the treatment of migrant workers building those facilities. Human rights organizations accused Qatar of widespread labor abuses. The Qatari government introduced significant labor reforms over subsequent years and rejected many allegations, arguing that international reporting often failed to acknowledge improvements. Nevertheless, the controversy surrounding the tournament dominated headlines for more than a decade. For FIFA, the criticism became unavoidable. Was football helping encourage reform through engagement, or had the World Cup become a tool through which governments could improve their international image? That debate introduced a phrase that is now impossible to separate from modern sports: sportswashing. Sportswashing. It is a term that has become increasingly common over the last decade. The accusation is simple. Governments with questionable human rights records use major sporting events to reshape their international reputation. Instead of headlines about censorship, conflict, or repression, the world's media focuses on football, on spectacular stadiums, on opening ceremonies, on famous players, and on unforgettable goals. Supporters argue that sport has always brought people together, regardless of politics. Critics argue that separating sport from politics has become almost impossible. FIFA insists it is politically neutral. Its statutes emphasize that football should unite rather than divide. But neutrality becomes increasingly difficult when tournaments are awarded by people, hosted by governments, and watched by billions. Every decision carries political consequences, whether intended or not. The question, therefore, isn't whether football and politics mix. History has already answered that. The question is whether FIFA has done enough to prevent political influence from shaping the world's biggest sporting event. That question became even louder in 2015. Few could have predicted what happened next. Early one morning in Zurich, Swiss police entered the luxury Bar-au-Lac hotel. Senior FIFA officials were arrested at the request of the United States Department of Justice. Television cameras broadcast extraordinary scenes around the world. Some of football's most powerful administrators were escorted from one of Switzerland's most prestigious hotels by police officers. For decades, rumours had surrounded FIFA. Now those rumours appeared to be transforming into criminal investigations. The United States alleged widespread corruption involving racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering conspiracies linked to football administration across the Americas. According to prosecutors, more than $150 million in bribes and kickbacks had allegedly been paid over several decades in exchange for media rights, marketing contracts, and tournament agreements. The investigation would ultimately lead to dozens of indictments and guilty pleas involving football officials, marketing executives, and intermediaries. One of the most extraordinary figures was Chuck Blazer, a former FIFA Executive Committee member. For years, Blazer had lived an extravagant lifestyle, luxury apartments, private travel, expense accounts. But behind the scenes, he had secretly become an informant for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Wearing recording devices, Blazer helped investigators gather evidence against individuals he had once worked alongside. Another central figure was Jack Warner, the powerful former president of CONCACAF. Warner consistently denied criminal wrongdoing, while Trinidad and Tobago declined requests for his extradition. Whether convicted, acquitted, or still contesting allegations, one reality became impossible to ignore. Football's governing institutions were facing the biggest corruption crisis in their history. The scandal reached the very top of FIFA. Although Sepp Blatter repeatedly denied personal criminal wrongdoing, mounting pressure became overwhelming. Only days after winning another presidential election, he announced his resignation. For many observers, it marked the symbolic end of an era in which FIFA had become almost untouchable, an organisation so wealthy and so influential that many believed genuine accountability would never arrive. Yet despite resignations, investigations and criminal prosecutions involving numerous officials, FIFA itself survived. The World Cup continued, sponsors largely returned, broadcasters renewed contracts, fans kept watching, the game moved on. Perhaps that says something remarkable about football itself. Perhaps supporters love the sport far more than they care about those who govern it. Following Blatter's departure, Gianni Infantino was elected FIFA president in 2016. He promised reform, transparency, modernization, accountability. He spoke repeatedly about restoring public trust. New governance rules were introduced, ethics procedures were strengthened, financial reporting became more comprehensive. Term limits were introduced for senior office holders. Supporters argued that FIFA had learned from its mistakes. Critics remained unconvinced. They pointed to continuing concerns surrounding decision-making, executive influence, and FIFA's increasingly close relationships with political leaders around the world. Then came another controversy, the expanded Club World Cup, the enlarged Men's World Cup, an expanded Women's World Cup. More competitions, more commercial opportunities, more broadcasting rights, more sponsorship, more revenue. FIFA argues that expanding tournaments allows more nations to participate, spreads football across the globe, and increases investment into developing associations. Those are legitimate arguments. More countries now experience World Cup football than ever before. Smaller nations receive greater exposure. Grassroots funding has increased. Women's football has experienced unprecedented growth. These are genuine achievements. But critics ask another question. How much football is too much football? Elite players now compete across domestic leagues, continental tournaments, international qualifiers, Nations League fixtures, Club World Cups, and expanded World Cups. Managers increasingly warn about player burnout. Medical experts highlight growing injury risks. Supporters complain that tournaments once considered special now feel almost constant. Has football become a celebration or a product? That question leads directly to money. Modern FIFA generates billions of dollars every World Cup cycle. Broadcasting rights, commercial partnerships, hospitality packages, licensing agreements, merchandise, corporate sponsorship. Few sporting organisations anywhere in the world control an event capable of generating such extraordinary revenue. FIFA argues that much of this money is reinvested back into football. Development programmes. Infrastructure, referee education, youth competitions, women's football, member association funding. Many national associations have undeniably benefited from FIFA investment across Africa, Asia, Oceania, and the Caribbean. Facilities have improved because of FIFA grants. Coaching standards have risen. Participation has increased. These successes deserve recognition, but financial transparency has remained an area of constant public scrutiny. Whenever billions flow through any organisation, questions naturally follow. Who decides where it goes? Who oversees spending? Who holds decision makers accountable? These are not anti-FIFA questions. They are questions that should be asked of every institution entrusted with enormous financial power. Perhaps the greatest irony is this. FIFA was created to protect football. Today, football often appears to protect FIFA. Despite scandal after scandal, the game continues. Children still play in parks. Supporters still fill stadiums. Fans still cry when their country wins. Players still dream of lifting the World Cup. The beauty of football has survived. The question is whether its governing institutions have always deserved that loyalty. So, has FIFA lost the beautiful game? The answer isn't as simple as yes or no. Without FIFA, there may never have been a World Cup. Women's football would almost certainly not have developed at its current pace. Billions of pounds have been invested into developing the sport across continents that were once largely ignored. Millions of children have had opportunities because FIFA existed. Those achievements are real. They should never be dismissed, but neither should the darker chapters, from fascist propaganda in 1934 to decades of opaque governance, to secret payments, to corruption scandals, to the arrests in Zurich, to continuing debates surrounding sportswashing, transparency and commercial expansion. The evidence shows an organisation that has repeatedly struggled to balance its founding ideals against the enormous power it accumulated. Perhaps that was inevitable. Perhaps any institution responsible for the world's most popular sport would eventually attract money, politics and influence. But inevitability is not an excuse. Institutions earn trust through accountability, not reputation, not history, not slogans. Accountability. Football belongs to supporters, not presidents, not executives, not sponsors, not politicians. Every child kicking a ball against a wall. Every parent standing on the touchline on a rainy Saturday morning. Every volunteer running a local club. Every supporter singing from the terraces. They are the people who own the spirit of football, not the people sitting in boardrooms. FIFA's greatest responsibility is not protecting its own image, it is protecting that spirit. Because once supporters lose faith in the institutions governing the game, winning it back becomes far harder than winning any World Cup. Football remains the beautiful game. Whether FIFA can fully reclaim its place as the trusted guardian of that game is a question history has not yet finished answering. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please remember to subscribe, like and share this video. It really does help independent journalism grow. I'm Sophie Jones-Redway. This has been the JR Voice, and I'll see you in the next one.